My name is Sarah Barton. I'm from Western Michigan, Holland, Michigan, and I'm a 2018 ECF Fellow. I'm a Doctor of Theology candidate at Duke Divinity School, and my area of study focuses on disability and baptismal identity and baptismal practices, kind of across the ecumenical spectrum. So I spent the first half of this year really engaging with folks around North Carolina where I was living and talking to people about baptismal theology, talking to people about their experiences in the church, particularly adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities, how they've been welcomed, how they've been lifted up in their baptismal vocations, how they've experienced discipleship, and what challenges they've experienced. And so my project is really trying to get at these baptismal roots of how we think it is that we are the people of God, how we do church together, how we can empower each other in our vocations to ministry, no matter what our experience of disability may be. And I'm really excited to continue the work of the dissertation with the support of ECF. The primary challenge I think I'm addressing is kind of a long-standing discrimination that has happened across different denominations and across different faith communities in response to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So in my work as a clinician, as an occupational therapist, I heard for years stories and stories about folks who couldn't find a community of faith where they could be a part of. Folks who've been denied baptism, or even if they had been baptized, they felt like their communities weren't upholding these baptismal promises to support them in their vocation to discipleship, in their participation in communities. So this is something that was really troubling to me, and I think should be troubling to the church at large. And so this is one of the questions that I've kind of come to my dissertation and my ongoing work with is how can we lift up the vocation to discipleship among even people who don't use spoken language to communicate, among people with intellectual and developmental disabilities who we may think always need to be the recipients of ministry. Well, how can the church see them as disciples, see their gifts, receive their gifts, and become better equipped because these folks are having their gifts lifted up and are a necessary part of Christ's body and not just on the side or neglected or someone who receives ministry. I think the Episcopal Church has so many resources, from our rich liturgical practices together to our prayer book, which commends us to practices of upholding the dignity of every human being, in our baptismal remembrance, in our practices of baptismal reaffirmation, and in our communal life together, that the Episcopal Church is ready to embrace the gifts of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. But churches, I think, are poorly equipped right now to do so. So I think the work that I'm doing, I hope, reverberates throughout the church and is something that Episcopalians can get excited about. We're all excited about the baptismal covenant, about baptismal vocation, and I want to challenge the church and work together with partners in the church to reimagine how that might look in the future as we discover each other's gifts more deeply, receive from the gifts of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and uncover some things, some unjust practices of the past and still in the present moment, and begin transforming those within the resources of our own tradition. I don't think we have to throw out those really rich parts of who we are, but there's such amazing resources within our life together, our practice of liturgy together, the work of all the people, and then in our prayer book that can support us as we move to be a more inclusive church where people feel like they truly belong. So the ECF Fellowship is allowing me to spend more time in partnership with others. Sometimes academic work can be solitary and isolating, and receiving the fellowship support from ECF has allowed me to really partner a lot more with people on the ground, people in parishes, folks with disabilities who want to share their story and have such gifts to share with the church. And I've been able to travel, to compensate folks, to really spend some more intentional time with people with disabilities and people in parishes that I otherwise wouldn't be able to do with my time if I just had to focus on completing a dissertation without this support from ECF. And I think also the fellowship through ECF has given me this sense of support from the church as a whole, and made me think a lot more creatively about how my work might be able to impact the whole of the Episcopal Church, not just the parishes that I'm directly connected to, or not just the folks that have been involved in my research, but how this might be a critical issue for the whole church moving forward.